Ryan checks his net worth on the first Sunday of every month. Not every day, not obsessively, once a month, first Sunday, coffee in hand, kitchen table, same ritual for 4 years. He started this habit when his net worth was negative $23,000, student loans, credit card balance, car loan. The number was ugly, and looking at it felt like pressing a bruise, but he looked anyway because he'd read somewhere that you cannot fix what you refuse to measure. This Sunday, the number is $47,200. He looks at it for a long time. Not because it's impressive. By most conventional measures, $47,200 is not impressive. His colleague, James, has a BMW and a downtown apartment and would probably laugh at $47,200 if he knew. But Ryan is not thinking about James. He's thinking about how different this Sunday feels from the Sunday 3 years ago when the number was negative. How different the coffee tastes, how differently he sat down at this table, with a quality of ease that wasn't there before, a specific absence of background dread that he'd carried so long he'd stopped noticing it until it was gone. He's not rich. He doesn't feel rich. But he feels something he doesn't have a precise word for yet. He will find the word later. We'll get to it. This video is about 3 specific net worth levels where something fundamental shifts in how life feels. Not 3 levels where you have more stuff. 3 levels where your brain, your actual neurology and psychology operates differently. I have been deep in the research on this for months. And what I found surprised me, because the levels where life actually changes are almost never the ones people think they are. My name is Sick, and I spend way too much time studying the relationship between money and the quality of daily human experience. Not the relationship between money and happiness. That research is more complicated and more interesting than most people know, and we'll get into it today. But specifically, at what dollar amounts does the texture of ordinary life actually change? When does the background noise quiet? When does the way you walk into a room shift? When does your relationship with risk, with time, with other people genuinely transform? Because here's what most financial content gets wrong. It focuses on milestones that matter mathematically, be it $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, without asking whether those are actually the levels where psychological transformation happens. And the answer, it turns out, is complicated, fascinating, and genuinely useful if you're building toward any of these numbers. 3 levels, 3 transformations. Let's go through all of them. Ryan's $47,200 puts him squarely inside level 1. And the transformation that happens here is not what most people expect. It's not confidence. It's not freedom. It's not the feeling of having made it. It's the cessation of a specific kind of suffering. Let me explain what I mean. When your net worth is negative or near zero, and this describes the starting position of most Americans in their 20s and early 30s, your brain is operating under what psychologists Sendil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir identified in their landmark 2013 research as the scarcity mindset. Their book, Scarcity, published after years of research across multiple countries and income levels, showed something profound and counterintuitive. Financial scarcity doesn't just create stress, it actively reduces cognitive bandwidth. It consumes mental processing power the way running too many apps drains a phone battery. People operating under financial scarcity literally have less mental capacity available for everything else: decision-making, creativity, emotional regulation, and long-term planning. The researchers found that the cognitive tax of financial scarcity was equivalent to losing approximately 13 IQ points, not permanently, but in the moment of financial pressure. 13 points. That is a meaningful reduction. That's the difference between performing at your best and performing notably below it. And it's happening automatically, invisibly, every time financial stress activates. Here's what this means for Ryan 3 years ago at negative $23,000. Every financial decision he made, every coffee purchase, every grocery choice, every parking fee, every unexpected bill was being processed by a brain running at reduced capacity because the background program of financial scarcity was consuming resources. He wasn't making bad decisions because he was bad at decisions. He was making suboptimal decisions because his brain was overtaxed. Now, at $47,200, something has changed. Not everything. He's not rich. The background program hasn't completely shut off, but it's running lighter because the scarcity threshold has been crossed. The research on this threshold is specific. Multiple studies, including a 2020 paper in the Journal of Consumer Research, point to somewhere between 3 and 6 months of living expenses as the point where the scarcity mindset begins to meaningfully lift. For most Americans, that range is approximately $15,000 to $50,000. Ryan is at the upper end of that range, and what he's feeling on this Sunday morning with his coffee is exactly what the research predicts. Not happiness, not freedom, the lifting of a cognitive tax he didn't know he was paying. Here's what Level 1 does to your daily experience in specific and measurable ways. It changes how you make small decisions. Before Level 1, every small financial decision carries a weight it doesn't deserve. The $7 parking fee creates a disproportionate emotional response, not because $7 matters to your financial future, but because your brain is treating every dollar as potentially the dollar that tips you into crisis. After Level 1, the $7 parking fee registers as information. This is what parking costs here, rather than as a threat. The decision is made with the part of your brain built for decisions rather than the part built for survival. This sounds small. It is enormous in lived experience. It changes your relationship with your job. Ryan's colleague, James, the BMW guy, works 60 hours a week at a job he openly hates. He complains about his manager in every conversation. He talks constantly about leaving. He never leaves because James has no financial buffer. His lifestyle has expanded perfectly to match his income. Car payment, apartment, restaurants, subscriptions, and every dollar is spoken for before he receives it. He cannot leave even if he wants to. His job owns him through financial necessity, and he knows it on some level even if he doesn't articulate it that way. Ryan works 43 hours a week. He doesn't love his job, but he doesn't hate it either. He stays because it's fine, and the money goes toward the next level. But, and this is the crucial thing, he could have a genuinely bad week and not feel existential dread about it. His manager could be unreasonable and he could push back. An opportunity could arise and he could consider it without panic. The job has less power over him than it has over James. Not because Ryan earns more, James actually earns more. Because Ryan has a buffer and James doesn't. Buffer is power, even $47,200 worth of buffer. It changes your physical body. This is the part that surprises people the most. The American Psychological Association's 2024 Stress in America survey found that people who crossed from negative or near zero net worth to $25,000 to $50,000 reported significant improvements in sleep quality, a reduction in tension headaches, and lower rates of reported chronic pain. Not because the money bought better mattresses or healthcare, the survey controlled for that. Because the physiological stress response that financial scarcity activates, elevated cortisol, muscle tension, and disrupted sleep architecture begins to resolve when the scarcity threshold is crossed. Ryan has lost 11 pounds in the last 2 years. He didn't diet. He didn't change his exercise habits significantly. His stress eating, which he didn't fully acknowledge as stress eating until it stopped, quietly disappeared as the financial background anxiety lifted. His doctor noticed at his last physical. Asked what he'd changed. Ryan thought about it for a second. "My net worth," he said. His doctor looked at him for a moment, then wrote something on the chart. What Level 1 does not do. Here is what's important to understand about the $25,000 to $50,000 threshold. It removes a specific kind of suffering. It does not add a specific kind of joy. The research on this distinction is clear and important. Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert's work on effective forecasting, how accurately we predict how we'll feel about future events, consistently shows that people overestimate how good positive financial milestones will make them feel. You expect $47,200 to feel triumphant. It feels quiet. You expect it to feel like freedom. It feels like the absence of dread, which is different, subtly, but meaningfully different. The word Ryan eventually finds for what he's feeling is this. Okay, not great, not free, not rich, okay. And if you've spent years feeling not okay, if the background dread has been running so long you've normalized it, okay is genuinely revolutionary. It's just not what you imagined. Let me introduce you to someone 3 years ahead of Ryan. Marcus is 37. His net worth is $194,000, $118,000 in a 401k and Roth IRA combined, $43,000 in a taxable broking account, $22,000 in a high-yield emergency fund, $11,000 in a checking account buffer, no debt. He drives a 2019 Toyota Camry with 67,000 miles that he owns outright. He has a reasonable apartment in a medium-cost city. He's not living lavishly, he's not living austerely, he's living intentionally, a word that has become more meaningful to him as the number has grown. And here is what Marcus's life feels like from the inside at $194,000. It did not feel like this at level 1. It feels like option density. Let me explain that phrase because it's important. At level 1, the breathing room level, you gained the absence of scarcity thinking. You gained a buffer. What you did not yet have was genuine optionality. The felt sense that multiple real paths are available to you and you have the resources to choose between them meaningfully. At $194,000, Marcus has option density. His employer offers him a lateral move to a different department. More interesting work, same pay. Under the old financial reality, this would have been a neutral or mildly positive proposition. Under the current financial reality, with $194,000 in assets and zero debt, becomes something different. He takes the lateral move without anxiety because even if it goes badly, even if the new department is worse, the manager more difficult, and the work less interesting than promised, he has enough runway to figure out the next step without catastrophe. The option was always theoretically available. What changed is that it became practically available. The financial foundation converted a theoretical option into a real one. This is what level 2 does that level 1 cannot. Level 1 removes the worst of the financial anxiety. Level 2 converts theoretical options into real ones. The research behind this transformation is significant. A 2022 paper by economists at Princeton studying household financial decision-making found that households crossing the $150,000 net worth threshold made substantially different career, geographic, and lifestyle decisions than households below it, even controlling for income level. The $150,000 households were more likely to pursue career changes, more likely to negotiate salary, more likely to start side businesses, more likely to make geographic moves toward opportunity rather than necessity. The money wasn't funding these moves in most cases, it was providing the psychological confidence that if the move went wrong, there was enough of a foundation to recover. That confidence changes the moves you make. And the moves you make change your outcomes, and the outcomes compound. What happens to your career at level 2? Marcus has not asked for a raise in 4 years at his previous job. He will ask for one at his new department within 8 months of transferring. Not because he suddenly developed negotiation skills, because his BATNA, his best alternative to a negotiated agreement, meaningfully improved. With $194,000 in assets and no debt, the worst-case scenario of a failed negotiation is an uncomfortable conversation, possibly an awkward professional relationship, and potentially motivation for a job search. With negative $23,000 in assets, Ryan's starting position, the worst-case scenario of a failed negotiation is being fired, financial crisis, and cascading consequences. Same negotiation, completely different stakes, completely different brain showing up to have it. Harvard Business School's negotiation research consistently shows that negotiators who have a strong BATNA are more likely to achieve their desired outcomes, not because they negotiate more aggressively, but because they negotiate more clearly. They can think straight. They're not operating under the cognitive tax of financial scarcity. Marcus gets the raise, $4,300 per year. He invests $2,000 of it immediately. The raise accelerates the compounding that accelerates the next level. What happens to your relationships at level 2? This is the part of level 2 that most financial content completely ignores. Money affects relationships in ways that are rarely discussed honestly, because the discussion requires acknowledging dynamics that make people uncomfortable. At level 1, breathing room, Ryan's relationships are influenced by financial anxiety in ways he's only beginning to recognize. He avoids certain social situations because they cost money he's not comfortable spending. He tolerates dynamics in friendships and family relationships that he might not tolerate if he felt more financially secure. His scarcity mindset occasionally projects onto others, reading generosity as showing off, reading financial ease as luck or privilege rather than behavior. At level 2, Marcus's option density level, the relationship dynamics shift in specific ways. He stops accepting dinner invitations from people he doesn't actually want to have dinner with because the social obligation is no longer freighted with financial insecurity. Before, at level 1, saying no to a social invitation sometimes felt dangerous. The relationship might be professionally useful someday, can't afford to alienate people. At $194,000, Marcus can afford, not financially but psychologically, to be more selective about how he spends his time and social energy. He is kinder to the people he chooses, he is more present, he is less resentful. Not because he's a better person than he was at level 1, because he has less cognitive tax, more bandwidth, more genuine choice. The University of British Columbia's 2022 research on wealth and social connection found that people with moderate financial security in the $100,000 to $300,000 net worth range reported higher relationship satisfaction, not because of how they spent money socially, but because of reduced financial anxiety's effect on emotional availability and presence. You cannot be fully present in a relationship when the background program of financial scarcity is running. At level 2, it's mostly off. The specific danger of level 2. Here is what I want you to pay close attention to, because this is where most people stall or slide backward. Level 2 is also the level where lifestyle inflation becomes most seductive and most dangerous. At level 1, lifestyle inflation is somewhat constrained by genuine financial limits. You can't dramatically inflate your lifestyle when you're at a $47,200 net worth. At least not without immediate and obvious financial consequences. At level 2, you can. $194,000 is enough to feel comfortable enough to rationalize the nicer apartment, the lease on a better car, the upgrade from economy to premium economy, the restaurant that's a step up from your usual. None of these individual decisions is catastrophic. Collectively, this is what Goldman Sachs's 2025 retirement survey showed in striking data. They can consume the entire wealth-building advantage of level 2 without the person ever making a single dramatic financial mistake. Marcus protects against this with a rule he developed in year 2 of his wealth-building journey. Every time his income increases, 60% of the increase goes to investments before it touches his lifestyle, not 100%. He's not a monk. He allows 40% to improve his life, but the 60% moves first, automatically, before the lifestyle sees it. This single rule has been worth approximately $34,000 in prevented lifestyle creep over 3 years. That $34,000 is now worth more than $34,000 because of compounding, and it's still working. Let me tell you about someone 5 years ahead of Marcus. David is 44. His net worth is $612,000, $380,000 in retirement accounts, $147,000 in taxable investments, $67,000 in a high-yield savings account, $18,000 in checking, home paid off. He owns it outright, bought it modestly and never upgraded. He works. But the way he works has fundamentally changed in the last 2 years as the number passed $500,000, and the change is not what most people think it is. He didn't retire, he didn't quit, he didn't take a sabbatical or dramatically reinvent his life. He just became unavailable for certain experiences. Let me explain what I mean by that. At $612,000 net worth with zero debt, David's portfolio generates approximately $24,000 to $28,000 per year at conservative withdrawal rates. Not enough to live on alone, not at the life quality he wants, but enough to do something crucially important, enough to make his worst-case scenario genuinely okay. If David lost his job tomorrow, was laid off, fired, or had a health crisis that prevented him from working, the portfolio would fund a basic life for years while he figured out the next step. Not a comfortable life, a basic life, but the crisis scenario, the catastrophe that haunts the financial psychology of people at level 1 and mildly concerns people at level 2, has been effectively neutralized, and the neutralization of the worst-case scenario does something remarkable to how you show up in the best-case scenario. David's work in the last 2 years has been the best work of his career. Not because he's smarter, not because his skills have dramatically improved, because the fear is gone, the specific fear that contaminated his professional performance for 20 years, the fear of getting it wrong, of being judged, of the professional failure that cascades into financial crisis, is no longer structurally supported by his financial reality. He can get it wrong, he can be judged, he can have a professional failure, and it will not cascade into financial crisis. That knowledge, and not just intellectual knowledge, but felt knowledge, bone deep sea, how you work at a level that no amount of therapy or self-help or professional coaching can fully replicate, because it's not a mindset problem, it's a structural problem. And at $500,000 to $750,000, the structure has changed. What level 3 does to your sense of time. This is the transformation at level 3 that most surprises people and is least written about. Below level 3, your relationship with time is fundamentally shaped by financial necessity. You spend time in ways that are financially justified, at work, doing things that earn money, and maintaining relationships that might be professionally useful. You skip things that don't financially justify themselves. You optimize time for financial return because time is your most valuable financial asset. Above level 3, time begins to reorganize around something different, around what you actually want. David takes Tuesday afternoons off, has for 8 months. He doesn't tell his employer exactly how he spends them. He walks, he reads, he has had lunch with his father, who is 71 and healthy but not forever, every other Tuesday for 8 months. He has eaten lunch with his father 17 times in 8 months. In the previous decade, he ate lunch with his father 4 times. This is not a financial calculation. There is no return on investment for Tuesday lunches with a 71-year-old father. Except that Bronnie Ware, the palliative care nurse who documented the most common regrets of the dying, found that the most universal regret among her patients was not having spent enough time with the people they loved, not having worked less, though that was second. Having spent more time with the people they loved. David is not dying. He is 44 and healthy. But he has read the research, and he has the resources to act on it in a way that people at level 1 and level 2 genuinely cannot yet. The freedom at level 3 is not primarily financial freedom. It is temporal freedom, the freedom to reorganize your time around what you actually value rather than what financial necessity requires. What level 3 does to your identity. Here is the third open loop I promised you. Ryan, level 1, is defined largely by his financial journey. His identity is organized around the building, the sacrifice, the discipline, the number. Who he is substantially intertwined with what he's doing to improve his financial situation. Marcus, level 2, is beginning to separate his identity from his financial journey. The number is still important, the building is still a primary activity, but other aspects of identity, or what he creates, who he mentors, what he's curious about, are starting to emerge from the shadow of pure financial focus. David, level 3, has largely completed this separation. His net worth is not his identity. His professional title is not his identity. The specific achievement of crossing $500,000 is a fact about him the way his height is a fact about him. Real, relevant in certain contexts, not organizing. What organizes David's identity is something that took years to identify and that the Tuesday lunches and the afternoon walks are slowly clarifying. He is someone who makes things, who thinks carefully. He wants the people around him to be better for having encountered him. None of that required $612,000 to be true, but $612,000 removed the financial noise that was preventing him from hearing it clearly. That's what level 3 ultimately does. It doesn't give you your identity. It removes the financial interference that was obscuring it. Let me give you the research framework that ties all 3 of these levels together, because there is one. In 2021, Matthew Killingsworth at the University of Pennsylvania published a landmark study on the relationship between income and happiness, a direct challenge to the famous Kahneman and Deaton finding that happiness plateaued at $75,000 annual income. Killingsworth's methodology was more sophisticated, using real-time experience sampling rather than retrospective surveys, and his finding was different. He found that happiness continued to rise with income well beyond $75,000. In fact, it continued rising across his entire sample range. But, and this is crucial, it rose differently at different levels. Below what he identified as a financial security threshold, roughly corresponding to our level 1, income gains produced large happiness improvements because they were reducing genuine suffering. Between the security threshold and what he called a comfort threshold, roughly corresponding to our level 2, income and wealth gains produced moderate happiness improvements through expanded options and reduced anxiety. Above the comfort threshold, into what corresponds to our level 3, income gains produced smaller but persistent happiness improvements, but crucially, the nature of what was producing the happiness changed. Below level 3, money reduces suffering and expands options. Above level 3, money buys time. And time spent according to your own values is the ingredient most consistently correlated with life satisfaction in the research, not experiences, not things, not status. Time. Spent how you actually want to spend it. That is what $500,000 to $750,000 net worth primarily purchases. Not a luxury lifestyle. Tuesday lunch with your father. Ryan closes his laptop on the first Sunday of next month. The net worth tracker shows $49,800. He is $2,200 away from $50,000. He will cross it next month or the month after. It is a mathematical near certainty at this point. He makes himself a second cup of coffee. He sits back down at the kitchen table. And he tries to articulate to himself, as he does every first Sunday, what the number actually means, not what it is worth, what it means. 3 years ago, the number was negative $23,000, and it meant you were in trouble and you did this to yourself, and you don't know if it gets better. Today the number is $49,800 and it means you are okay. You made a bet on yourself and the bet is working. The worst case scenario that haunted you has been pushed back far enough that you can breathe. He is not at level 2 yet, not at level 3. He's at the end of level 1, at the place where okay is the word, where the absence of dread is the gift. And he is thinking about Marcus, who doesn't exist as a specific person, but whose life Ryan has constructed in his head from the data and the research and the logic of what comes next. And about David, same. And he is understanding something that took him 3 years of monthly Sunday mornings to understand. The levels are not destinations, they are thresholds. You don't arrive at them and stay. You cross them and the game changes. The rules change. What matters changes. What you can do changes. Who you are in the context of money and time and work and relationships, all of it changes, and then you keep going. Not because you're chasing something, not because you're running from something, because the person you are becoming, the version of yourself that exists on the other side of each threshold, is genuinely worth building toward. Ryan finishes his coffee. He opens his investment app. He increases his automatic contribution by $50 a month. He closes the app. He goes for a walk. He has nowhere to be. He gets there slowly. That's enough. Hit subscribe if this gave you a different way to think about the thresholds you're building toward. I'll see you in the next one.